Good morning, everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining today. So far, the market is pulling back just a little bit, but it's mainly because of the crazy day we had yesterday. So many stocks exploded, but honestly, we still have a lot of stocks just lingering right around their levels from yesterday. We can see the SPY and especially Apple is holding up very well. So heading into the market today, we have a lot of, I guess you can say, buyers standing their ground. But, at the same time, it looks like we are seeing a little bit, or at least the early stages of some profit taking.
Yeah, it definitely looks like there might be a small pullback. At least it looks like there has been one in pre-market anyways. But I know that after hours was great last night, especially for Apple and for the SPY. And we haven't really fallen below like closing prices by too much or anything. So, while we are just kind of flat, I will say it looks a lot better than it could be. We could be pulling back pretty decently. So I'm glad to see it kind of holding up like this. And I think it does give us maybe some confidence heading into this morning. But it's hard to just keep saying that we're going to keep going up because the past 2 days have been so awesome. We've had such great advancements or at least turnarounds on some of these growth stocks like DraftKings, even things like Twitter, Intel, you name it. Even Apple's been making new highs. So it just seems like stocks have been doing very good, at least to start this week, and we might see a little bit of a pullback here.
There we go. All right, and then another one that's exploding this morning is Roku. They are really, really popping up. They're at like 235, almost, or yeah, almost at 230, 238. But either way, they have some good news with Google slash YouTube. Basically, both Google and Roku agreed to a multi-year deal extension that they had, so that's good to see. They're running off of good news, and of course, whenever you have any news with any major company, especially like Google, it's pretty good. So definitely keep Roku on your watch list. They're breaking out. They have some decent volume, and besides that, when we just look at their chart, they've been at a pretty low level anyways. So you'll definitely want to keep this one on your watch list.
Yeah, definitely. I know that we've been talking about them a ton, Mike, in these live streams over the past couple of days, especially as they kind of came down and touched that $200 support. I think that was an amazing level that they touched. And if we look on the Max Daily here, you can kind of see how that 200 support was definitely a key level in the past. But Mike, another one doing very well this morning is actually Solar Winds, and actually they're not up as much as I thought, but in the end, it says that they changed up on the Market Watch pre-market screener here. They had them up 9%, but it looks like their stock obviously didn't even move that much. So I don't know what Market Watch was doing there, but in the end, Roku had a great morning there. That was pretty crazy to see. I know PSFE is also on their pre-market screener, and that one had a pretty nice morning, but I don't know why they had SWI on there with no movement.
Yep. All right, there we go. But anyways, one stock that is really moving is NEO. Check them out. They're up basically 2% after a pretty horrible past couple of days. There's a ton of support levels where they're currently at. They're having a pretty good opening. And Tom, are they getting pretty close to the 1,000 SMA?
Yeah, they are actually on the 5 minute chart. It looks like they're about to come up and extend up towards that. There's also that resistance up there around 35. So maybe they'll be able to break above that today. I know that they've definitely been on a downtrend lately, and I'm really glad to see them kind of extending up here, especially with how these China stocks have been going. So I'm really glad to see them turning around, and hopefully we see BABA and the rest of the China stocks start to go up so that it can kind of help NEO up. But either way, NEO's doing pretty well.
Yep. And we can't forget about these cruise lines either, like RCL. I know that it was like literally looking terrible like over the past month, but it looks like it's trying to come back up. I know the Omicron news, variant news is not good for it, and that's what initially made the cruise lines fall, but it looks like they're trying to pop back up, and it looks like RCL is getting pretty close to that 75 resistance.
Yeah, they're definitely doing a lot better, and I'm glad to see them coming up like this. And I would think if they broke above 75, Mike, it could make for a pretty nice breakout there. And it looks like they're starting to fill the gap on the daily. They have a gap kind of between like 72.50 and like between 77. So maybe they can get up towards 77. That would make for a pretty nice move today, I think. And looking at it on the 5 minute, like you said, if they start to break out, that'll be awesome.
There we go. So guys, let us know what stocks you're watching. We'll definitely take a look at them. Thank you guys so much for joining. But yeah, I mean, right now it looks like the market's kind of split 50-50 between red and green stocks. We are seeing some of these plays pull back, and at the same time, we have Bitcoin actually popping back up. So that's good to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Bitcoin had a pretty big move down this morning. I don't know what exactly happened here with the news. Maybe you guys can give us some insight in the chat. But Bitcoin definitely fell below that 50,000 support early on this morning. Had a pretty big move down, and looks like they came right back up above it. So hopefully they go back up. I know this 50,000 support should be pretty big over the next few days, and we're definitely probably going to have a lot of volatility around here.
Yeah, and then I know CHPT's earnings were huge yesterday. I don't mean to change topics so quickly, but it was just something I've been meaning to cover. CHPT was a highly anticipated earnings report yesterday, and they had a pretty volatile after hours. Like right after market close yesterday, they were rocketing up, and then now they're down over 7% already today. So I don't know. Just I figured I'd bring it up because I know a lot of people were watching it.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting subject lately. And I know that ChargePoint was going to also maybe be a pretty big deal for like Blink and some of these other plays that might have ran in sympathy with them. And, it looks like Blink and some of the others are kind of coming down today. I wonder if ChargePoint might be bringing the others down. But yeah, I mean, the earnings just did not go as expected. Kind of like what we've been seeing with all these growth stocks lately. The earnings just came in not as not the way the market wanted, to say the least. The EPS came in lower than the estimate. I don't know how the revenue ended up looking on it, but in the end, though, I will say though, they're still right around support, and they didn't fall off as much as they could have. I will say, we've been seeing some of these stocks might go down 15-30%. There's been some crazy stuff. So I'm glad to see them still sitting around the $20 support, but it's definitely not looking good. And I could definitely see them keep going lower with how it went.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I guess the good thing is that, like specifically growth stocks, it looks like the bleeding has stopped, at least right now, so that's good to see at least. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you though, for sure. Let's see. All right, and then we have Mike saying, I feel like it's too late to get into ETH, so Ethereum. Let's take a look at it really quickly. So let's give us 1 second. So if we look at Ethereum, we can see it's currently trading for like 4,400 or so. Honestly, I felt the same way. I actually was pretty late into Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like I bought a very small position when Bitcoin hit like 10,000 for the first time, and that was like years ago. But I really didn't get like too heavy into it, or I'm starting to slowly put more or invest more money into the cryptos, and I kind of felt like I was really late too. But honestly, like I've been buying Bitcoin and Ethereum pretty consistently, like every month or so, and I bought Ethereum. I want to say probably around like 24 or 2,500, something like that. And now it's at 4,400. So like the point is that these cryptos have been exploding, and they very well can pull back in a drastic way. But no one really knows what's going on with these ones especially in terms of short-term movement. And it seems like there's a lot, and like a lot of money, flowing into them. So maybe it doesn't hurt to get like a small position, Mike. I mean, it's just something to think about, because I felt the same way as you, and I just said I'm just in a dollar cost average, and so far it's been working well. But of course, anything can happen, and they can tank down.
Yeah, definitely. And just like we've seen in the past, like in the beginning, these coins had some amazing movement, like I kind of show on the chart here. Ethereum had that awesome move all the way up to like 1,400, and then it rocketed all the way back down and consolidated around, like 150, 170, somewhere like right around that area for the next couple of years. And then we got this nice explosion again this year, or I should say the past 2 years. But it just goes to show that Bitcoin and these cryptos, obviously, whenever they go up, they go on these nice explosions, and they can pull back pretty drastically. So it is always important to be careful with it, but also keep in mind that if it pulls back, it's probably going to pull back so much that you're going to want to get in a lot lower anyways. So I think it's pretty smart, like Mike said, to start to average in here, because if it comes back down pretty drastically, like let's say it gets halved again or something, back down towards like 2,000 or 2,400, then I think that you could get in at a decent price and you could still average in and make your cost average pretty low there, I think. And I just think it's a smart way to go because, like Mike said, you don't know if these are ever going to slow down or anything. So, the crypto market's definitely crazy. It's going to be a very volatile market to be into. But, if you just average in, I think it'll be pretty good.
I'm with you. For sure. All right, well, I just want to welcome everyone to the stream really quickly. Thank you guys so much for joining, and welcome David, Mac, Bill, Mike, Keisha, George, and Spacely. Thank you guys so much for joining. We have Spacely saying, good morning, Cfvi. So let's take a look at it. Cfvi. I've never heard of this one. It looks like it's down like 5% today, which sucks to see, but it also looks like one of those SPAC deals, but I don't really follow it too much. It has a lot of hype, and if it is a SPAC, Tom, we know how these ones have the potential to go crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Just like we saw with DWAC, just like we saw with CCIV back whenever Lucid was getting their SPAC deal going. And yeah, it can definitely get some crazy movement. And, be really careful though, because just like what we saw with DWAC and a few others, they like to go up for the first few days. And then a lot of times they like to end up going down or just being flat. And it looks like today it's definitely on the downtrend. So be a little careful with it.
Awesome. All right, and then we have George saying, let's go run. RUN, I love run for the long term. Yeah, hopefully they pick it up. I mean, they are a solar play, and it's definitely a longer term play, but they're a pretty solid company in my opinion. I also really like Enphase. Enphase is definitely they're definitely in like a better position, I would say. But either way, I really like both of them, and Run's probably my second favorite solar company. Or, it's tied, I would say between Enphase and Run, it's really close.
Yeah, and then there's also like, FSLR, and then there's a ton of other solar stocks too. So especially more established ones, which is good. But I know that RUN is definitely a nice growth stock, and I've definitely been eyeing them up as well as, like RUN, ChargePoint, Plug's another one down here I've been eyeing up. And I feel like they all can be pretty good for the longer term. And, RUN's been awesome, and I love this $40 support. So it seems like a pretty decent time to be buying too.
For sure. All right. Yeah, and then George said that he's in Run and Enphase. Same. So should be good. The solar industry has a lot of growth potential, so it's good to see that. And then he said he's a lot heavier on Enphase at the moment, though. And hey, that's not a bad thing. Enphase is, if we're being honest, is probably the safer play. So it's definitely not a bad thing. And another thing I wanted to point out was the TAN ETF. This is just basically a bunch of solar stocks all in one. So maybe check that out as well. Then you can get exposure to even more solar companies. So just something to keep in mind. And then we have Rick saying, getting killed on ChargePoint. Let's take a look at it. CHPT. Wow, 9%, Tom. Looking pretty rough.
Yeah, it's definitely not good today, that's for sure. We are still down around that $20 support, but we're going to have to see a bounce pretty soon because it looks like we might be breaking below it. So hopefully we see this green candle on the 5-minute keep extending back up. But yeah, it's definitely not a good sign. That IV definitely got crushed today as well. So any of the call options we're already going to lose. But, with that IV had that after earnings crush just as usual. And, that's going to hurt it even more. So yeah, the calls are definitely not going to be good. I know the shares will only be down very slightly. I know 10% is definitely not a good thing, but in the end though, at least you can keep holding those and you won't have to worry too much about the timing. But man, it's not a good day. The earnings are not going how people expected. And, in the end here, it's been a really bad past few months for some of these growth plays with earnings. And, ChargePoint just kind of continuing with the trend here, just definitely not a good sign. But, the good news is that a lot of these other growth plays have been doing good over the past few days, and some are still going up, kind of like we're seeing like with Corsair and some of the others. So hopefully this sell-off doesn't bleed into the other ones.
Exactly. All right, and then Tom, we can't forget about Apple. They're making new all-time highs. They're exploding up. Good volume, great price action. Or sorry, they're not making new all-time highs. They're very, very close to making new all-time highs.
Yeah, they're just about to that high from yesterday and after hours, up there around 173 to 174. That ended up being a pretty big move they had at the end of the day. This stock has been a powerhouse over the past few days, Mike. Like CNBC reported a couple weeks ago, it's almost just like the safe haven for the market right now. You know, all the investors seem to be just running towards them. They're getting into electric vehicles. You know, they just keep updating stuff with their iPhones. Their sales are good. Their numbers are good. So it seems like it's just an awesome company to own. Now, they are getting a little overextended, in my opinion, but, you know, at some point they will probably pull back a little bit. But I really like the stock, though, of course. They just keep having so much innovation and stuff for the longer term. Obviously, that really helps out investors, too. You know, like we see other stocks like just as one example, maybe like AMD, you know, like, of course, they're going up here and they're doing very well and everything. But, you know, they're not getting into the type of stuff Apple is. Like Apple does the cars, the chips, the phones, the laptops. Like they do so much stuff that even like AMD, Nvidia, and these other companies just, they have a lot of problems, you know, keeping up with the innovation that Apple can. And I think that's why they're continuing up here. And it's just been a very awesome past few days, Mike. And we'll definitely have to monitor it this morning because I think we might end up breaking above here, maybe at some point today.
You know it. It's crazy. Gosh. All right. So there we go. Some other stocks that I see that are breaking out. We have, like we already talked about the cruise lines, but a different one I wanted to talk about was Facebook. Actually, you know, it's coming on my breakout scanner, and we are getting really close to an intraday breakout. I wouldn't say it doesn't look as powerful as Apple, you know, especially that daily chart, but I guess it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and they did recently, Mike, touch that $300 support, and they touched $300 pretty much even there, which is great to see. And it looks like they're back on the uptrend. And, you know, Facebook is now like the metaverse. So it's kind of hard to, you know, bet against them. I know that they're called, they should be called Meta now, but in the end, I feel like that they should do pretty well. You know, all this metaverse news has helped a lot of other stocks like Nvidia, Unity, even like Roblox has gotten some huge moves. And it seems like Facebook hasn't really been helped too much with it. And I'd love to see them, you know, start to break out. I think if they could break that high of day from yesterday, right around like 326.50, I think that we could see a pretty awesome move today, Mike. And I just can't wait to see Facebook for the next few months because I'm really hoping that this news really helps them turn around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they definitely have a lot of potential to, you know, grow and expand. At the same time, like, they did have some really negative news, like, over, like, the past couple months. But, you know, they're a solid company. They're probably not going anywhere. So they should be good for the long term. And we have Mass Money saying, WTF happened to ChargePoint and Square. Well, ChargePoint had earnings, so that explains that. They are breaking down right after their earnings report. Looking at Square, it's only down 1%. So, I mean, this just looks like normal movement. I'm not sure if you're holding like options on it because that could be bad. But yeah, this looks like just normal movement to me.
Yeah, me too. It doesn't look like we're falling down too much with Square, which is good. It is down very slightly, but you know, keep in mind we had a very nice day over the past couple of days, and some of these stocks that have been flying up are taking a bit of a breather today. Like a lot of my watch list is red, but keep in mind it's not red by a lot. Most of it's kind of like Square, just red by like 0.8%, 0.5%. Just a lot of stocks kind of just slightly pulling back. Like we can see Nvidia just, you know, not really doing much today. So I'd say the same thing with Square. They're just kind of just going flat, not doing too much. They're not necessarily tanking, but they're not really going up either. So I just feel like it's just consolidating kind of as expected, Mike. You know, we had a very nice past few days, and, you know, we have been saying that some consolidation might be expected here.
For sure. All right, good stuff there. Let me see something really quickly. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to point out really quickly, like in regards to like options and options pricing and all that, is if we look at DOCU, which is DocuSign, you know, most of us are at least aware of what happened to them over like the past, you know, couple weeks. They got destroyed, especially on that earnings report. But you know, we can see a lot of times when implied volatility rises significantly from whether it's like an earnings report or a catalyst or whatever. One, we can see the stock hasn't been moving, but these options, like over the past week, have just been getting destroyed. Like, I know that I'm just going to pull up the 140 straddle really quickly. I mean, if I wanted to really demonstrate the point, I could even do the 145 straddle. But if we looked at the 140 straddle for, oops, it's loading. Hold on, give me 1 second. If we look at the 140 straddle for this week, it has just been getting destroyed. On December 3rd, this straddle was trading for around $2,100. Today it's trading for 800, and that's only over the course of like 3.5 trading days. Like you lose 50% of the value in 3 days. It just goes to show you that whenever implied volatility is high, you really have to be careful, because whether you're trading Rivian or ChargePoint or Square or whatever, if you're buying when implied volatility is really high, it's not good.
Yeah, it's just not a good thing to do. Implied volatility being high can be pretty tough. And, it's sometimes it's kind of bad, because you'll see some awesome stocks in a great setup or something, but sometimes then the IV might be so high that you might need to double glance it and be like, maybe I'm just not going to take this position. Maybe I'll just wait for some better pricing, or maybe just find a different play. And sometimes that's just what you have to do. And playing earnings can be so tough, like we always say, Mike. Generally after earnings, I usually see, Mike, a big IV crush, kind of like what we saw with ChargePoint, where the IV generally goes from like 108% down to like 83%. Like that's a pretty big drop. And usually it is that drastic. Like, I'll be honest, I usually see it fall like almost like 10-20%. Almost, it's pretty common. So it's very rare almost that it rises after an earnings report too. Like, I know, Mike, that it almost always goes down. It's very rare to see it rise. I think the earnings have to be pretty crazy for it to go up.
Yep. There we go. All right, and then one thing I wanted to check in really quickly is just the market overall. It looks like we're trying to bounce. I'm checking out the SPY. It looks like we're lingering right around that 468 support.
Yeah, we are actually lingering right around that, and we failed to break below it. It looks like we got a bit of a bounce back to the upside on the 1-minute chart off of that, which is nice to see. And I'm glad to see that. So hopefully the SPY continues up. But, like we've been saying, it's had a very explosive week so far. And I feel like that we could fall down a little bit. Now, I'm not saying we're going to crash, but I feel like we could maybe come down and retest maybe like 466 or maybe like 465, somewhere like that. But if the momentum keeps up today, then that would be the best case scenario. And I really hope that the market can maybe break back up above like 469 and possibly start to break out above 470 like we were doing in pre-market early on.
Yep. All right, and then we have Mass Money saying, check Rivian. My puts are down. Any signs of a downtrend? Let's take a look. RIVN, yeah, down like 2%. Again, this one has very high implied volatility. So, like, this stock is in a downtrend, and it can keep falling, and you can still lose money. So let us know what puts you're holding, and we can definitely help you out, and we'll check out the pricing on them. But, yeah, I mean, they definitely are in a downtrend. Then we have Vicky saying, good morning. AI seems to be on the move again. Do you think it will, or no, sorry. We have Vicky saying good morning, and then Kathy, who has like a very similar profile picture, said, AI seems to be on the move again. Do you think it will get to resistance at $33 today? Yes, we actually just broke it, and Tom, it's actually looking pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's looking great. It's popping up above $33. It's popping up above the 1,000 SMA. I think it looks awesome, and I loved the setup yesterday, Mike. I know that whenever the bot called it out, like I've been eyeing up AI for shares, and whenever the hybrid bot called it yesterday, I actually went ahead and bought 100 shares for the long term because, man, I've been eyeing this company up for a long time, and it was just at such a great price point. I really hope that we see it continue up, and, with the way it's breaking out, I would not be surprised. I'm really happy to see that it broke that high of yesterday. And I'm also happy to see it broke 33 and that 1,000. I think that's just looking pretty good on a technical level. And they're also just in an awesome sector. Like the AI sector has such room to grow. And, they should be a pretty good hyped up company here pretty soon.
Yep. All right. And then we have Ed saying, good morning. Hope you all have a good day and take some profits. There we go. Thanks so much for joining, Ed. And then we have George saying, is that an inverted head and shoulders on Corsair? Tom, let us know. Is that an inverted head and shoulders?
Yeah, I mean, let's check it out. It kind of looks like one on the 5-minute, to be honest. If I go ahead and get my drawings here, if we're talking about it on the 5-minute, I'm definitely seeing a bit of like a head down there with a shoulder somewhere around like the $21 support. I see it. I definitely see what he's saying. You could maybe say this is a shoulder here too, but I'm definitely seeing it. It looks like it's breaking out very well. I definitely like the setup down here, to be honest. And I'm definitely looking at it. to me, Mike, it looks like a bit of an inverse head and shoulders. It's not setting up perfectly for it because I think some of these prints over here in pre-market and after hours aren't showing up the best. But if they did, I think it would look a little bit more defined. But yeah, I think it looks really good to the upside. It's breaking out up above $22, which is an awesome resistance. And we're getting close to that 1,000 SMA. But I think in this case, the main thing to look for is going to be that 22 resistance that's getting broken right now. I think that's going to give us a lot of momentum here in the short term.
There we go. Awesome to see it. And then we have Mike saying, what happened to ChargePoint? Their guidance and earnings seemed okay. So honestly, I didn't watch I didn't join the earnings call for this one, and I haven't followed their report too closely just yet. But we could see that in terms of their okay, so Tom has the highlights pulled up. We can see their quarterly revenue increased 79% year over year. Full year guidance raised, which is great. So that's good. And then also their EPS was expected to come in at minus like 14.5 cents, and it actually came in at minus 21 cents. So Tom has a great article pulled up here, but they did miss on their EPS.
Yeah, and they have a lot of numbers that they talked about, like revenue, their gross margin, net income and loss, and stuff like that. And if you guys want to get the exact numbers, just kind of go on Google and type in Yahoo Finance ChargePoint earnings, and I think you'll find the same article like this pop up. But there's some awesome numbers in here. I'm really glad to see that they raised their guidance. I think that was good because it shows that they're kind of having a decent outlook, which is great. Their revenue increased 79% year over year. And then they're falling again. We've been seeing this happen nonstop. I know that another company that increased their revenue was DraftKings year over year. They ended up falling down as well. And it seems like ChargePoint is kind of following along the same footsteps, but there's definitely some great numbers in that article. And I'll be honest, the earnings weren't as bad as I thought they could have been. I know the EPS wasn't very good, but I will say it was good to see the guidance go well and the revenue. So I'm pretty surprised to see him falling off this much, but we've been seeing this happen across the board. So I guess it's not totally unexpected.
True. I mean, they did miss on their EPS, but then like you said, Tom, like they raised their guidance, which is pretty big, and then their revenue seemed pretty good as well. So then again, I think it just comes back to like the market overall. Like over the past 2 months, I don't care, like for the most part, like some of these companies reported some pretty solid earnings and still just got destroyed, like especially Zoom. In my opinion, they reported great earnings. They beat on a lot of their numbers by a pretty big amount. They raised their guidance. They beat their expectations. So it's like, sometimes it's just like the market overall. And I guess in situations like that, it's just like a buying opportunity if you do believe in the company. I really like Zoom, and I guess you could argue the same thing for DraftKings. Like they didn't have like amazing earnings like Zoom did, but the same point still applies.
Yeah, they had some good revenue numbers, just like we're seeing with ChargePoint, and still they ended up falling down with that as well. And they're looking pretty good today, Mike, up 3%. I'm not trying to change the subject too quick, but man, they actually have a nice move to the upside. And if they start to break above that high of yesterday here at like 32.70, I think that could make for an awesome intraday move with DraftKings. And man, I'm really glad to see him getting back on the uptrend. What happened, Mike? I know we always say, did hell freeze over? Like, what's going on here?
Right? I mean, it's good to finally see some green, but at the same time, like, it really shouldn't have fell like it did in the first place. But good, it's finally trending up. It's holding its ground, which is great. And I would think that shorts are probably covering their position now, but who knows? I just love them for the long term, and I think that they should be a pretty solid play. So that's awesome to see. And then we have Mass Money saying, please check Chewy. I'm down on calls. So Chewy, it is, there's earnings. What is that, earnings tomorrow or earnings very soon? So this is a complete gamble if you plan on holding this for the rest of the week. It is in a downtrend, but earnings is complete. It's a complete 50-50.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be really tough to get, to try to predict Chewy's earnings. And, the earnings are always going to be tough. I know that they have earnings, I believe, after close on Thursday. So it's definitely going to be interesting to look at. But, I personally don't think I would play it, but I know that you said you're down on calls right now. There is a big support around $58 and $37.50. So maybe that'll end up holding up. But I'll be honest, kind of like what we've been seeing with some of these other stocks, like I feel like they had a good chance to form an inverse head and shoulders here, but unfortunately, Chewy looks like it's kind of breaking down below it, kind of showing us that it might be in more of a downwards trend than we're seeing, like we pointed out with some of those other stocks, kind of in a nice upwards trend this morning. But it's just it's not looking too hot, and it does worry me with it having this type of movement into earnings. But in the end, it's going to be really tough to predict the earnings, and I wouldn't even play it through that personally, especially with what we've been seeing lately.
Exactly. And Tom, on top of that, look at the IV on this thing. It went from like 45% to over 100% in like a couple weeks. Like that's insane.
Yeah, let's go look at that on the daily really quick. Wow, that's actually a humongous increase, Mike. I didn't even expect it to be that much. And, I know that a lot of stocks have been increasing like this as well. Like I know that I think Zoom's been one. Yeah, Zoom's been increasing a little bit, not as much, but we've been seeing a little bit of an uptick in implied volatility lately. And I think that maybe all those variant fears maybe made the market a little more volatile than usual.
Yeah. All right. And then we have Mass saying, what's the trend with Teladoc? Teladoc, again, it is in a downtrend. IV still elevated. I do like this one for the long term, though, and that's for the long term. So, short-term calls don't apply.
Yeah, that exactly. I think that for the next few years, this will be an amazing setup, an amazing stock. But in the short term, it's probably going to go all over the place. If that IV drops, those calls might end up getting killed too. So just be really careful with it in the short term. But, like we said, we do like it though for the longer term. But keep in mind that's for the next couple of years or so.
Yep. All right. I'm just trying to do a couple scans, Tom, to see some stocks that are moving in pretty notable ways. One of them is LVS. LVS is up nearly 5% today, and honestly, they've been getting destroyed all year.
Yeah, they really are up quite a bit. And like you said, they got killed earlier this year. And I got really scared whenever they fell below this 35 support. It was looking pretty rough there for a few days. But I'm really happy to see them coming back, Mike. And I wonder if they're coming back with the China stocks, because the China stocks seem to be turning around a little bit. It seems like LVS is doing pretty good. So I'm happy to see it, and I hope they continue up. And I love that breakout above 38 today, Mike. I think that was an amazing intraday move, and they're getting close to $40 now.
For sure. So, Tom, what I'm wondering is, we know LVS and Win they move together, right? In my opinion, Win is a better long-term hold, but, to each his own. But looking at this, it's at a point right now where it's still basically pretty low. It's now starting to bounce back up, and IV has been falling lately. So with that combination, I'm really considering, looking at some of these longer term calls, because one, IV just dropped a decent amount, so that's good. Two, it's still at a relatively low level, and then three, it's finally starting to show some signs of actually holding its ground and popping up. So I'll tell you, I'm really eyeing up some of these longer term plays. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good myself. I really like how they bounced around this $80 support on Win. I think it looks great. Like you said, I think it'll be a really good pickup for the long term. And I think that Win is also a little bit better than getting LVS. But in the end, I think they both might do pretty decent. And whenever I see Win, they own a lot of properties in Vegas and different stuff like that. So while they are in China a lot, I will say that at least they're also in the US quite a bit. And with them owning a lot of stuff, I would hope they do pretty well. And, for the next few years, I know that Vegas did pretty bad during COVID. Like we can see that Win took a pretty big hit. I know that people have been saying Vegas should do pretty well with inflation going up and stuff like that. So hopefully we see Win and these hotel companies turn around. But, I like it for the long term too. And honestly, I'm definitely eyeing up some shares as well. And with it kind of double bottoming at 80, it's looking pretty tempting, to be honest.
Yeah, and I was looking at long-term options, and for Win, I was looking at the 90 strike calls for January 19th of 2024. So that gives you a ton of time. And the 90 strike calls right now cost around, let's just say for simple math, $2,000. So basically that would make your break even at $110. So you look at the chart and you're like, it looks like Win is pretty likely to be above 110 by January of 2024, so I'm really eyeing it.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a big thing to look for. And whenever you're looking at it going forward, the pricing's there, it looks pretty good. And as long as that options pricing's good, the IV is not totally high or anything either. So man, if we start to see that IV pop up a little bit, that could be great, honestly. And man, all that we need is maybe a good earnings or something, and maybe this stock can get up pretty well. But I'll be honest, like I think it'll be a pretty safe play, especially if you can hold it for a couple of years. You know, I know a lot of people have a lot of issues holding stuff for a long time, but you know, man, if you let these things go, sometimes some of these leaps can end up increasing by some crazy amounts. I've seen, you know, I'm not saying it happens all the time, but man, I've seen some pretty crazy ones with these leaps.
Yep. All right, and then we have Vicky saying, hit the like, guys. Yeah, if you guys like the stream, it would help us out so much if you could hit that like button. It only takes like 2 seconds, and Tom and I would greatly appreciate it. And then we have Iranical saying, no move on QQQ and VOO. So, yeah, it's been pretty choppy so far. If we look at the QQQ, it's just not really moving. You know, it's not uptrending. It's not downtrending. It's not moving at all. Yeah, it's just not moving, Tom.
Yeah, it's not doing too much. It looks like it, if anything, it's just slightly going to the downside, but not really doing anything. I don't know what to think about it today, Mike. Like, I know that, you know, we were maybe expecting this because we had two amazing uptrends here, especially even in pre-market and after hours. Like we normally don't see it go up that drastically, but it was just an amazing past few days. And, you know, we're seeing stocks do pretty well again. I will say, you know, some of these stocks are doing decent, like Facebook's up, Corsair's up, Snapchat's doing good, Apple's in the green again, which is great. And I don't know what to think about it right now, because I feel like that for the rest of the day today, it's going to be hard to continue to buy calls, because I just feel like that the market is just taking a bit of a breather from the past couple of days. But I feel like the uptrend can definitely continue, possibly, you know, tomorrow or even like possibly on Friday. But, you know, I will say I like the uptrend. It's just that I feel like that we're just kind of consolidating. And, you know, like we've said since the beginning, this is a little bit expected too, because of how drastic the moves were. But, you know, I'm definitely waiting for it to break above $400 even on the QQQ's case. I think that's going to be a pretty key psychological and resistance level there.
Here we go. All right, and then we have, let's see, we have Mass saying check UAL. So the cruise lines and the airlines are doing very well today. UAL is up 5.5%. It's breaking out. It has a lot of volume coming in. So there's just a lot of buyers flooding into it, which is great to see.
Yeah, they're doing fantastic. I'm really happy to see the airlines turning around, Mike, because, you know, what have we been hearing a lot lately is variant fears and all this types of stuff. And that's awful news for these types of companies. But hey, they looks like they're doing pretty good. So I'm glad to see it. And, you know, in the end, I know Biden said there won't be any more travel restrictions or lockdowns. At least that's what he said. So hopefully that's the case. And maybe the airlines are going up off of that news. I know that was some pretty good news to hear last week.
Yep. All right, and then we have Keisha saying, why isn't Peloton moving? Let's take a look. Peloton, I mean, there's not really a reason for it, but, I mean, if we needed, like, an answer, I would say there's no catalyst with it. You know, Peloton isn't, like, your average, like, tech stock, and it's definitely not, like, a value stock. It's unique, right? And they also had they had a really bad earnings report recently, too, and there's just, like, a lot of selling pressure overall, and there's just, like, there's nothing to, like, there's no catalyst or anything, so it's just kind of lingering around.
Yeah, and they're consolidating like right around this $40 price point. And, you know, I will say, as long as they keep holding right around 40, I think it'll be pretty decent. It seems like they're definitely holding their ground. Like, sure, they had that nice initial fall to the downside, but besides for those first few days, they've pretty much just been lingering around. And I would say that they might get a pop to the upside with if all these other growth stocks continue up. But, you know, at the same time, it's going to be really tough for them. I will say, though, I love this $40 support, and I really hope that it ends up holding up for them. So that's going to be the main thing I'm looking at.
Gotcha. All right. And then, Tom, like, do you have any setups you're seeing or anything like that?
Man, I know Fastly has been one over the past few days that I've really been eyeing up, and they are looking pretty good again today. You know, they opened up pretty slow, just like everything else, but they ended up rocketing up. And man, they broke that high of yesterday. They broke up above $41. Looks pretty good. And whenever I look at Fastly on the daily chart, I mean, man, how many more bounces do they need to have at this bottom support? Like, if I go ahead and plot this, they've bounced around $34 to $35 like 3 or 4 times here over the past couple of months. It looks pretty good, and I'm definitely eyeing them up. It looks like they're on the uptrend with some of these other growth stocks. And, you know, like we're seeing with Peloton, you know, Peloton's kind of hitting their support and not really doing anything. But some of these other stocks like Fastly, Corsair, and some of the others are kind of moving to the upside pretty nicely. And, I think Fastly's definitely one to throw on the radar, up 3.8%. They definitely have a lot of momentum.
I'm with you. And I feel like people are really sleeping on Corsair. Like I remember last year, yeah, right around December and January, everyone was hyping this one up because it was exploding up. It was at like $50 a share, and now it's at 22, and it's at a discount, and no one wants to talk about it. But I feel like it's a pretty solid company that should do very well.
Yeah, I think they should do well also. And, they're getting into the holiday season. I know that generally they get a bit of an uptick in sales around that time. Now, keep in mind because of Cyber Monday and Black Friday and everything like that. So maybe we'll hear about those numbers pretty soon. But I feel like that they just need some type of good catalyst or something to get back on the uptrend. And, their earnings also haven't been terrible. It definitely hasn't been trending in the right direction. But I will say, though, it's definitely bouncing off this $20 support. I like them, and I'm really hoping that the holiday season helps give them a boost.
Tom, I don't know if you were following this or not, but Corsair actually bought Origin PC. Like they bought the company.
No, I didn't. What do you know when they did that?
Yeah, it looks like it looks like because I'm like actually reading some of the old articles, but from Origin's website, it looks like in July of 2019 actually. So it was a while ago.
That makes sense because I will say, Mike, whenever we were going through that process with the computer, I will say they did kind of say that I did see on like the internet on some forums and stuff that they had switched companies or switched owners, but I didn't know it was Corsair. But wow, I mean that's a pretty good pickup, I think, by Corsair. And Corsair makes a lot of great products, so that's honestly a pretty good pickup for them. Like they have a lot of products that they can help use for that company at least, which is great.
A lot of products and a lot of great brands too. Like they also own Elgato, which I know is huge for like streaming and all that. So for many reasons, I like Corsair for the long term, and I just think that the industry that they're in, and especially like esports and all that, I think it's gonna be huge. And they have a lot of great products that are already being used by a lot of people. So I'm not really too worried about them, but I really do like their stock at this level.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, like as the holidays come around, people love to buy their stuff. And it's not just the computers they get into. They sell mice, keyboards, they sell headsets for like Xboxes and controllers and different stuff like that. So definitely very interesting. And I feel like that for the longer term, they'll do amazing. It's just in the short term, they took a hit. They came on the market at a great time. They came on when DraftKings, whenever everybody was going up. So obviously it's not just them on the downtrend either. Like, we've been seeing Zoom fall, DraftKings fall, and everything else. So I don't really blame Corsair too much for this fall. I feel like that it's almost just been that they're just kind of been thrown into that type of growth sector. And I feel like they might be doing a little bit better if they didn't enter the market at that crazy time.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. All right, another one I wanted to cover really quickly was Roblox. I know this one had a ton of hype, and it's just not really, it's not an uptrend or a downtrend right now. To me, it looks like we're going to retest that 110 support.
Yeah, it kind of does to me as well. I could definitely see it coming down and retesting that. We're bouncing off this 1,000 SMA, getting kind of like a double touch off of it the past couple days, failing to break out above this 118 resistance and just not looking good. So yeah, I could see it going down too, Mike. And it's definitely looking like a downtrending stock, at least to me, intraday today. And I'll be honest, it almost looks like a pretty good play for puts if you guys are scalpers out there and you know what you're doing. This one might be a pretty good scalp play if you see it start to break down.
Yeah, it's not bad, and I don't want to get too advanced, but I was actually eyeing Roblox for an interesting play, a collar play. Basically, instead of like buying the stock, though, I'm thinking about taking a short position on the stock, selling a put, which will basically act as like a covered call, but it's just on the short side. So I'd sell a put, and then I'd buy a call, and basically I'm just making the bet that the stock will fall, but it's protected. Like when you short shares, a lot of times, or all the times when you short shares, you have unlimited risk. The stock can go up to 200, 500, whatever, and you can get screwed over badly. So I don't know. Like I'm really considering it because I really do think that we will test down to that 110 support. But the problem with it is like you can't buy puts just off of that thinking because Roblox can easily touch that 110 support and you could get screwed over because of the implied volatility. So I don't know. It's just something I'm eyeing up. I'll check and see if one, Roblox can even be shorted, and then two, like what the risk reward scenario looks like.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys just if you see it just break below that, for if you see it break below like 114 or something, keep in mind you could always scalp like a naked put, but that's the only time I think I would play this one naked personally, is if it was something super fast, because keep in mind Roblox has been pretty volatile lately. Like Mike said, that IV, it's not the highest in the world, but it's definitely up there compared to the past couple months.
For sure. All right, Tom. Well, let's see. We have a couple people mentioning Facebook. We have Iranical and Vicky asking for levels for Facebook for a day trade.
For a day trade, I think Facebook looks pretty good to the upside, but keep in mind the only issue I have with it, we're starting to break out pretty well up above 325, but now we're already getting close to this 330 resistance. So I will say I like the setup on them. Just be really careful. We're getting close to a pretty key resistance around 330. And I'm seeing another key resistance right around 332. And 332 is also going to be right around that 1,000 SMA. So those are going to be the levels I'm eyeing up as this stock starts to rise today. If we could get up to 335, I think it would be amazing. But I think that these other resistances might come into play first. But I'm really happy to see Facebook moving like this. I think it's moving great off the technicals. We're up above the SMAs, which is great. And hopefully we can get up above the 1,000 over the next couple of days. But, like I said, 330 I think is going to be pretty tough today, and then 332 after that.
All right. And then we have Mass asking about Nvidia, and they said, what about Nvidia? Is it in a downtrend? No, it's not. I mean, it depends on what chart you look at. Like if we're looking over like the past couple of hours, then yes, it's in a downtrend. But if you look at basically any other chart, it's in a giant uptrend. If we look over the past couple weeks, it's just consolidating. So it really depends on what time frame you're looking at. Basically, all of them are uptrend. Past couple weeks is consolidation, and like the past couple hours is downtrend.
Yeah, and we did start to go on a downtrend like last week, but this week has been an awesome turnaround week for it, and it looks like I think Nvidia's went back on the uptrend, which is great. We are hitting off of this 325 resistance, which is going to be, I think, a pretty hard level to get through for the next few days. And if we're able to break back up above this, maybe we'll be back on the uptrend. But I'm kind of with Mike. We're just kind of consolidating right now, and it's going to be a very interesting next few days, because I feel like that the market overall and some of these tech stocks like Nvidia are going to finally pick a direction. Like the SPY is getting close to all-time highs, Nvidia is close to all-time highs, and I feel like that Nvidia is a little bit overextended on the daily chart, but if we end up going right back up, it's going to be an awesome move. So definitely watch it. I think that I'm more with Mike. It's just kind of consolidating. I'm going to be more neutral on it, but I'm also going to say it's slightly bullish in my opinion, at least this week.
Here we go. All right, and then we have Anderson saying, "Good morning, fellas. Have you covered UPST and DOCU yet? And any ideas on stocks for a day trade? Thanks for everything." So let's take a look. We did cover them a little bit, but looking at DOCU, basically any options on DOCU have been getting destroyed lately because the implied volatility is high and it has been falling. So any options on DOCU are pretty rough, so please keep that in mind. I mean, if you want to like day trade them, they should be fine, but ideally you'd want to stay away from DOCU options. If you wanted to trade DOCU shares, that's a different story, and I actually kind of like that.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're trading DOCU like intraday, if you're getting in and out within like 5 or 10 minutes, I think you could be great. But unless you're doing that, I'm with Mike. I would stay away from it. Like, look just the other day, DOCU, and this is, keep in mind, like a couple days after we had earnings. So it's not like a huge earnings bust or anything, but you can see that in the middle of the day, DOCU went from like 80% all the way down to below 70% that day. So it can definitely have some bad intraday IV moves too. So I'd be really careful if you're going to scalp it really quick. That's the only way I'd play it. But I think UPST might be a better way to go. But, keep in mind, UPST also is pulling back pretty hard today, a lot harder than some other stocks are.
Yeah, I'm really considering UPST for like a little bit of shares for the long term. I don't think it's bad. I don't know. I'm like 50-50 with it.
I kind of like it. Upstart is kind of like a firm, I think. AFRM, aren't they kind of like a lending company?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, so if they're kind of like in that sector, I think they could do pretty good. And, they should do decent for the longer term. And hey, at least you're not buying them up here around $350. I think it's a lot smarter to buy it down here. So I think that's good in that sense. But, AFRM and UPST, they both have been kind of on the downtrend the past couple of months. And I don't know what to think about it, but I will think that I would say that UPST should be good for the long term, especially being in that like lending sector. I just feel like that, any type of companies that involve like credit or stuff like that generally do pretty well.
Yep. And then in terms of like any ideas for stocks for a day trade, I was looking at like Facebook, Snapchat, and Win for like the main ones as of right now.
Yeah, those ones are looking pretty hot. I know Facebook was really breaking the upside. They're almost up towards that resistance around 330. And then I said there was another one up there around 332. So definitely watch that. Another one you said was Snapchat, Mike.
Yeah.
They're actually looking great, up to 52.78. That looks awesome. Twitter looks pretty good to the upside. Maybe they could be a good one. Looks like they might be getting up towards like their high of yesterday, while Snapchat and the others are kind of breaking out. I know AI was another one this morning, Mike, that I was eyeing up a lot. And wow, hey, look, they're actually turning back around. Actually, AI might be they might be breaking out pretty soon, actually.
Let's go. Let's go. All right, Tom, well, do you have any last minute stocks, options, or anything for the rest of the day?
I really just want to say watch these cruise lines, watch the airlines. I think that they're on a pretty nice uptrend today. CCL is almost back up to $20, which is great. We have AAL on the uptrend too for the airlines, looking awesome. They're about to break the high of yesterday. So maybe this could also be another good possible day trade today. They're looking pretty hot. So definitely eye these stocks up. I will say though, today's a little bit of a slower day than it has been the past couple of days. The SPY and the QQQ are kind of going flat. Stocks are a little bit mixed. A lot of these slower moving value stocks are kind of not really doing much today. Like we can see Caterpillar's not really moving. We have Triple M not doing much. KO is kind of just flat again. So it seems like the overall market's moving kind of like these like the value stocks. So I will say just be careful of some consolidation or a slight pullback, but I would definitely look to be bullish tomorrow and possibly on Friday. But like I said, for today, I would definitely say it's going to be a slow day, and be a little careful today with the IV and everything like that.
There we go. So thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. The market's not really doing much, but we do have some stocks really moving, so that's great to see. Thank you guys so much for joining, and have an amazing rest of your day.